This is Loudspeaker.
Hi, and welcome to Connecting a Better World, where we spend time meeting some of the most incredible human beings who make this world a better place. We will learn how each individual took their ideas, mission, and purpose to create and serve others in business and organizations that surround social good, social entrepreneurship, and social impact, and find out how we, together, can further connect others to help. I am your host, Dr. Natalie Phillips. Today, I spend time with Lieutenant Anthony Waite, a husband, father, active duty naval officer, nurse, educator, and most of all, a leader and coach who is dedicated to being intentional with how he influences those he leads and loves. Anthony shares with us about a youth organization he developed dedicated to raise up the leaders of tomorrow called Guys in Ties. Focused on 4th through 6th grade boys, Guys in Ties provides educational and inspirational environments for positive influence and personal growth. All right, so I am super excited because I have a very good friend here on the show, Anthony Waite, and I have to say I feel so blessed to know someone like you. We met on Clubhouse back in January, and I am just blown away by the knowledge, the discipline, the strategy, and the inspiration that you continue to share with your friends, your colleagues, and also your followers on social media and in your leadership coaching and your training as well. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Dr. Natalie. It's an honor to be here, and it's been a blessing to have you in my life and on this journey. When you get like-minded people around you, I think that it gives you a lot of momentum and motivation to keep going, and keeps you up whenever you're feeling like those days where you're like, yeah, you know what? Why am I doing this?
Yeah, it's definitely giving me a lot more positive energy in this world, and then just positivity overall. So yeah. Totally agree. So let's get my listeners introduced to you. Tell me a little bit more about your story and who you are.
Yeah, so Anthony Waite, I'm active duty naval officer, and that's what I do inside the uniform. I'm an educator. I train doctors, nurses, and our corpsmen on combat medicine and also skill sustainment. So I do anesthesia a couple days a week as well. And with that, that's allowed me to kind of travel the world and provide medical support to over 11 countries now. And it's been such an honor to serve in that capacity. However, I looked at my skill set and what I was really passionate about. And while I love medicine, I love the naval officer side of the house of being a leader. And what I did was I was able to take that and transfer it into the civilian side and start a program out in the community called Guys in Ties, which I'm sure we're going to talk about today, but also train executives and middle-level managers on how to communicate, how to connect, and really how to build the confidence to lead with character opposed from credentials. And what I found is that niche was very fruitful in the sense that there was a lot of people who had the position, they had the title, but they didn't have the confidence and therefore lacked the competence to lead others by who they were instead of just what they did.
So interesting too, because I feel like when you're in the military, like you have to have a certain amount of confidence, right? But I guess maybe not everybody are leaders, right? And that's just, in real life as well. So I think it's really interesting that you said that and that you continue to grow that leadership and that passion into something. I love how you're able to work across the board now, because I'm looking at the different ages that you're working with and the different interests as well. And I think that it's really kind of cool. So to kind of get back to just let's go back to kind of like your upbringing. And did you have a role model or someone that you looked up to while growing up?
Yeah, it's funny you say that everybody assumes being in the military, wearing the uniform, deploying around the world, that you have confidence. But what I found is, and what really got me on this journey was, I had the title, I had the positions. I was a brand new commissioned officer with 10 years in the military. I worked with the President of the United States. I've been very fortunate to work with some high-level executives and some of the best surgeons in the world. But when it came to confidence, I lacked in that capacity. It was easy to lead by the medals and what you saw. And on the outside, I was bigger on the outside than I was on the inside. So what you saw was like, man, this guy who's in shape, he's a motivator, he's going after it, taking all the hard jobs. But on the inside, I was still empty. I was still kind of broken, if you will. I lacked that internal guidance and I would say it was the confidence. I lacked it because my character was flawed. And going into my childhood, I think that was child wounds that I brought into my adult life, and I didn't know that they were there until they showed up in my life in certain areas. And one of them was leadership.
Wow. And what's interesting as well, too, is you have an Anthonyism that our dear friend Sloan and I tease you about, leading with character, not credentials. Yeah. And I think that's exactly like what you're saying is you could have the uniform, you could be, pressed and, cleaned and shiny, right? Your shoes and everything like that to the nines and everything like that. But inside, it's still that leadership. And maybe it did go back to kind of your upbringing. Yeah. But it's interesting how when it hit you as well was when you were in that height of where credentials could have easily taken over, right? But instead, you still had that, I'm not too sure, like the imposter syndrome or the lack of confidence, which as I look at you now and as I know you now, of course, I didn't know you back then. I'm like, you're crazy. Like you're absolutely crazy, but you did the work. That's the point, right? Yeah. And so what you felt back then, to the person that you are now and who you lead and how you lead really talks to the character of the hard work that you decided to put in. And maybe that is just your character, right? That the hard work that you do is something that now transfers over to the leadership and the hard work that you put in to now lead others. Yeah.
In that epiphany, I think we all have it at some point in our life, right? This aha moment where we say, wow, here I am. And people look at us and they say, man, well, people want to be like you. They want to be you. I mean, I had people come to me, grown men say, my son wants to be like you. He idolizes you. And I was like, me? Why me? Like, you don't understand like where I came from, and to share a little bit about the childhood that carried over into, my adulthood, that epiphany came to me. When I was coming off a night shift, I was a brand new nurse working on a critical care floor, and I was seeing very sick patients. There's people dying all the time, and I was on rotating shifts, and it was exhausting. But not only that, I was a brand new officer. I was a brand new father. I was a brand new husband. And so all these changes in my life, my personal and professional life, and what that did was it left me open and exposed. And what I found is that while I can go in the uniform and go to work and lead and do all the medicine and show my credentials, when I came home, and it was one day, I remember one morning I came home and my wife and my son they were sleeping because it was 6:30 in the morning. And I remember walking past our bedroom and I slept in the guest room because I didn't want to wake them and he was just a baby at the time. And I remember looking over at them sleeping peacefully and I thought to myself, man, I got to get my stuff together. I was insecure. I was struggling. I didn't know how to be a man. I didn't know how to be a father or even a husband because growing up, my childhood, my dad left when I was 2. He chased a drug addiction that he battles with even till today, at 4 years old, I would witness my mom attempt to take her life by overdosing on her depression medication. So she struggled with her mental health. And that kind of set the tone for most of my childhood. Most people say, remember your childhood and all the great things that happened. I never had memories of my childhood. I couldn't because, it was a lot of trauma. It was a lot of abuse. And it was one of those things where we had an unfortunate circumstance. We were given away to a family that really didn't want us after my mom was put into a psych hospital. And we would kind of go throughout our life up until, we were 12 years old. My sister and I, really getting the short end of the stick, if you will. And it set the tone for, we created our identity around this, that we're not good enough, that we'll never be enough, that we'll never have enough. When there wasn't enough food to eat, we didn't get meals, And so we had this ingrained in us that we don't have enough, that we'll never have enough. And it was a scarcity mindset that was set at an early age, and science shows that, between the ages of 7 and 12 is where we really create our identity, who we become. And for me, that was not much, so to speak. So as I became a father and a husband, I had my son, and now we have 2 sons and my wife. There was a lot of things going on inside that you couldn't see on the outside because I was able to mask it by the title, the rank, the medals, and all the degrees and stuff. And I thought that in order to be more, I had to have more. And that was my limiting belief, that I had to have more in order to be more. I need to have more money. I need to have a bigger house. I need to have more degrees. And so I went on this tailspin of just trying to achieve. And it was good because I got rewarded right away. There was an instant gratification. But as you know, when it comes to marriage and things that are good, it takes time. It's work. It's a daily thing, not just in a day. And I was wondering, why can't I get my marriage to work overnight? Why can't I be the father that I need overnight? Why can't I be the leader and feel like that person who's confident to go in these meetings overnight? And when I realized that leadership doesn't happen in a day, it happens daily. And it's just like the microwave mentality that I share with my, when I speak, the microwave mentality is, you want something right away, you put it in the microwave 30 seconds a minute, you got your hot meal, but it tastes like crap, it's unhealthy, and it's full of, crap. But if you want something good, you got to put it in the crock pot and let it simmer over all day. And sometimes we have to do that.
I love that. Absolutely. So, as you're glancing over at your wife and son sleeping, right? You can say that to yourself, but like, I've got to get my act together, right? And it might have been an epiphany moment for you, but you had to put the work in. So what did you do to now then grow into the leader that you are?
Yeah. So, I went to work. I remember this day. I went to work and I was coming on shift and I told my boss, I said, I'm struggling with balancing this work life. Everybody wants work-life balance. And I don't believe in it because I tried it and it doesn't work. I still don't have balance in my life. You can ask my wife, she'll tell you. But I think what we need is work-life harmony. And what I was trying to figure out was, how do I find this work-life harmony? But being naive, the naive person I was looking for balance. And I tell people, when you go to balance a scale, right? What's the number on the scale when it's at balance? It's zero. That means you're not doing nothing. You're not being nothing. So you'll never have nothing. So to find balance means you're not doing anything. And I was tired of not doing anything. I was tired of just being stuck and saying, well, I got to change. So let me just sit here and think about what I have to, we just talked about the law of attraction recently in our clubhouse. And that's why I said, in order for it to work, you have to take action. That's the catalyst. Mm-hmm. And I was tired of just sitting back waiting for things to happen to me. My whole life was that way. Everything happened to me, never happened for me. And what I realized was, in order for it to happen for me, I got to go make it happen. I got to take action. And so I went into my boss that morning and I said, I'm struggling, in my marriage, I'm struggling, I'm a brand new father, and I'm having a hard time coping with all of this. And you know what they told me? Just focus on your job. It'll get better. It'll get better. Okay, well, thank you. Oh, and by the way, you're deploying next week for 8 months. Okay. Thank you for, putting icing on my, my cake. And so I was faced with the deployment. And as I was getting ready to pack for my deployment, we found out that we were pregnant with our second son. So here we are with the 8-month-old son, and we had one in the oven. And my wife was like, wait a minute, now you're leaving for 8 months? Like, I'm going to be pregnant this whole time. I'm surprised I still owe her for that, by the way. I'm paying it back every single day. But here I was. I was getting ready to deploy, and my life was upside down. And then I did what everybody else, I think a lot of people do. I thought, well, maybe if I go away, it'll all go away. If I just run from my problems, right, they'll just automatically disappear. Maybe like my boss said, it'll just get better, whatever that meant. And so here I was getting ready to go on a ship for 8 months, and my wife pregnant at home with the 8-month-old. And so I went on that boat, and somebody gave me a book. It's actually on my nightstand right now, but it was The 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth by John Maxwell. Somebody gave me that book and they said, here, read this, take it with you. And while I was on the boat, I think, this is something where I don't think anything happens by accident. I think it happens for a reason. But we were cleaning right on the boat, and I was cleaning up all this mess, and there was these boxes. There was like, just throw them all away. And in this box, there was a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And if you've ever read it, it's a powerful book. And I said, well, is this to belong to anybody? Did anybody drop this? They said, oh, no, it's from the last crew. You can just throw it. And I was like, I'm going to keep it. And I remember reading that book and 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth. And what I found was, the power of choice. That, somebody told me this. They said, when we're born, we look a lot like our mother and father. But when we die, we look like the decisions that we made in life. And here I was playing the victim, saying everything's happening to me. The reason why my marriage is screwed up because I didn't have a father. I didn't have an example of a marriage. The reason why I'm not a good man is because I was dealt a bad hand. And here I am reading Viktor Frankl and how he struggled through the concentration camps, lost his family, went through that whole deal. And he said, but something that we have that nobody can ever take away from us is our power of choice. And in that moment, I realized that I have to make a choice. I have to start making better choices. And I have to start making the choice that I'm going to fight for what I want. Instead of just letting life happen to me, I got to make it happen for me. So I went on this deployment. I served a lot of people. I got to do a lot of amazing things all over the world. And I remember coming home with a new found purpose. And it wasn't my job. It wasn't my credentials. It was my character and who I was as a man. I went searching for my meaning and I found it. And what I realized is this where I got this quote that I share today that you've heard often is, if you can't lead from behind your front door, you have no business leading outside of it. And I went to work on my family. And I was willing to sacrifice my career for the sake of my family. And what I did was I stopped competing with other people. I stopped looking at other people's life and comparing myself and saying, well, I'm not good enough. I'll never be enough. I'll never have enough. Because that was the story that was on repeat, right? Just replay over and over and over again. And what I did was I stopped competing. I stopped comparing. And I started connecting. And there was 3 things that I connected to. I connected to my faith in God. I connected with my wife and started sharing my vision with her, because I had a vision for me. I want to go and climb the ranks of the military and go lead a lot of people and deploy and be a superhero. Well, what would that mean if I was a zero at home? So I connected with my wife. And most importantly, I connected with my why. Why do I do what I do? And it wasn't for the medals. It wasn't for the money. It was for the meaningful relationships that I wanted when I was a kid. And so I started creating them. And that's what I did. And over time, not overnight, I'm still a work in progress, I promise you. I started to change. And as I started changing the way I looked at things, the things I looked at began to change, including myself. When I looked in the mirror, I was proud of who I'd become without the medals and the uniform on. And as soon as I started connecting, I started creating the life that I wanted.
I love that. Wow. It's so powerful. And, you know, a lot of people who better themselves do it because they want themselves to feel better, right? Or they want to provide something, or like you had a vision to, you know, definitely lead at home first before you stepped out of the door, right? In order to lead others. So what was so important? Because this is kind of, I feel like, icing on the cake, because it's not just that you did this for yourself, but now you're able to, like, you're focused on giving back, and it's serving, and you have a heart of service because of your occupation, right? And who you serve. You serve our country, you serve others, you know, in the medical field as well. But when you talk about then stepping forward through your leadership to now give back, why was that so important to you? You could have just stopped at serving like what you were serving, but now you wanted to create something else. And why was that so important to feel like you had to give back even further?
Yeah, you know, when I got back from deployment, I had the opportunity to be on a call with John Maxwell, who is now one of my mentors. And for those who don't know John Maxwell, he's one of the biggest leadership and development speakers and trainers in the world. And he was coming out with a program where he was going to raise up other leaders and to go on to be coaches, speakers, and trainers. And I thought to myself, well, you know, that'd be nice, but nobody wants to hear me talk, right? I was like, you know, I just want to do this because I need a mentor in my life. I need somebody that can see outside this box that I'm in called the military. And I need somebody to see me and call me out for the man that I want to be. And I got on a call with John Maxwell and his faculty, and I was there for about an hour and a half. And I remember we were sitting in front of this Tasty Frog. It was the little frozen yogurt treat thing, you know. And my wife and I, we'd go sit there, and we're sitting in the car, and I was listening to this call, and she said, "What are you doing?" I was like, and I turned it on the radio, and she listened to it, and I was like, you know, that's who I need in my life. If when I get to that age, I want to be like John Maxwell. Like, you know, he's lived a very fruitful life, and it wasn't because of what he got; it's because of what he gave. And at the end, you know, he said, you know, we're looking for other people who want to be coaches, speakers, and trainers, but you also be mentored by myself and the faculty. Well, at that time, I just wanted to be mentored. I needed somebody I needed to look up to, and I didn't have that in my life at the time. And I remember going home, and I didn't have the money at the time. We were struggling financially too, and I pulled out a credit card, our emergency card, and it was in my desk. Well, I have a nice executive desk now, but I had like a little, it was like a side table. That was my desk. And I pulled it out and I swiped the card, and it cost me a lot of money, but I was willing to invest in myself. And what happened was, when I started to invest in myself, I realized the value that I had inside of myself. You see, we invest in things that we see value in, and I never invested in myself because I didn't see value in me. But when I put my money where my mouth is, and I said, you know what? I'm willing to go to the table of life and bet it on me, because if I don't bet on me, nobody else will. I can't expect people to follow me if I'm not willing to follow me. You know what I mean? And that's the number one question I tell people now. Ask yourself every morning, would I follow me? And if that answer is no, then you got some work to do. And boy, did I have a lot of work to do. And I went to work, getting on the calls, listening to John Maxwell, talking about faithful, servant leadership. And what happened in that, I remember the time that, before I joined the military, I joined as a homeless teenager, right? I went through this childhood that was less than desirable, but I was homeless as a teenager. And I was sleeping on a friend's couch, and I remember waking up and going to the recruiter, and people asked me, why did you join the military? And I really believed that it was that calling on my life, that I wasn't created for struggle. I was created for service. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but now I do, because that same question was asked to me 2 years ago. A little girl, I was doing career day at a school, just sharing my journey of becoming a Navy nurse. How did you become a Navy nurse? And I shared with them all the great things I did, right? And this little kid in the background said, well, why did you join the Navy? And I thought to myself, well, your family must be Air Force or Army, because you said it kind of, with a little attitude, okay. But in that moment, it caught me off guard, because I never shared that story with anybody. I was very ashamed of it. And I never told people why I joined the Navy. And in that moment, I just felt something in my heart to share the reality of why I joined the Navy. And it wasn't to serve my country. It wasn't to, go and make money. It was because I had no other options. All my friends were going off to college and trying to figure out what school they were going to. And I was trying to figure out where I was going to get my next meal. And so the military was really a second chance at life for me. And so I shared with them why I joined the Navy, my childhood. And when I got back to my office the next day, the principal was in the room, and she reached out to me. She said, Lieutenant Waite, the kids really enjoyed your story, but not the one about your career. It was the one about your struggles. They didn't care about your success. They wanted to know about your struggle. We have a group of kids that we've identified as behavioral problems. Would you come speak to them? And I said, of course, yeah, no big deal. And so I remember walking in the auditorium that day, and there was a bunch of little boys. And I thought to myself, well, what's the deal with this? Like, why is it all young men? And they said, well, they're the ones that are causing the behavioral issues. And as we went through all the data and we started gathering all the demographics and what's the tying thread? It was they didn't have a positive male influence in their life. And in that moment, I saw myself in each one of those little boys, because that was my trajectory. I was the problem child. I was the one that you wouldn't have bet on, that wouldn't have amounted to anything. And so we got together, and I said, you know what? I'm mentored by John Maxwell. I have all these credentials. I never use them because I don't have the confidence to use, I get me speaking on stages. Yeah, right. But I had this curriculum, and I think it'd be good if we tailor it to these young men. They said, you know what? That's a great idea. So that we created a 12-month program, and it became Guys and Ties. And we tailored it to the young men, and we called it Guys and Ties because you think about a superhero, right? Like Batman or Superman. They're normal people. But when they put the cape on, they put the uniform on, they become extraordinary. And for these young men that lack this confidence, I was like, this tie is kind of their cape. They put it on, they act different, they show up different, they're leaders. And my goal is to take them in this 12-month process, to take it off the tie, and they still stay the same person they were when they had it on. And that's what we did, and it was amazing, because that opened the door to a lot more opportunities. And it was because I wasn't chasing a paycheck. I wasn't chasing the monetary value. I was chasing a meaningful purpose. And I tell people this, if you want to find your purpose, be that person you needed when you struggled. And for me, I was being that person that I needed as a little kid, as a young man. And when I did that, I led with my heart. And when you do that, you reach for the heart and speak to the heart before you ask for the hand. And that's exactly what happened. And it was an amazing opportunity to serve at a bigger capacity, something bigger than myself.
Wow. That's such an incredible story, because as you listen to how you grew up, right, and you didn't have it, I can only assume that a lot of people don't have that. I don't know where it comes from, if it's the gut, if it's the heart, right, to then say, not only am I going to lead here, but I'm going to actually give back, because I need to be that person that they might not have, and I know I didn't have at the time, right? And that's so incredible. I love the confidence, the instant confidence with the tie. And I love that it's over 12 months, because I do believe that it doesn't just take one meeting, right? It takes repetition. It takes, we had talked about this too, momentum, right? Of repeated actions in order to make a big change, right? And so what's super interesting is that it wasn't even on your radar, and it sort of just plopped in your lap, but it was perfect at the perfect time and the perfect person to actually walk this out. So it's called Guys and Ties. And talk to me about the ages, it's a 12-month program. The ages that you include, it's for boys only. And what about, what are some of the things that you do over the 12-month period?
Yeah, so we ran a couple of tests with leadership and development through these grades, and we found that the sweet spot was really the fourth grade and fifth grade boys. We tried it in middle school, but the turnout wasn't as great. I think really it has to do with that influence, that external influence, right? So society, when they get to the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level, they got social media, so they're kind of, they've already kind of ingrained what they were going, and they're getting ready to go to high school, so they already have their persona created, who they think they are, right? They're building their identity. But at the young age like that, there's still time to capture them, show them there's a different way. And so we ran these tests, and we found that 4th and 5th grade are the boys that we can still influence and help out. And so how we did it was we did a family on the family day where the family brings their kid to school to meet the teacher night. We set up a table, and we literally said, "Hey, moms, here's this is what it is, guys and ties. It's for young men who are looking to be leaders, who are looking for confidence, clarity, consistency, and how they show up." And it was interesting because the parents had to consent to it, and all these parents signed up. They're like, "Yeah, my son needs that." And it was really cool to see.
Wow. And then, so some of the things how long has this been that you've been doing it now? Like, has it been years, months?
Yeah, so a couple years now. So 2017 is when we started. We got to 2019, and then of course COVID happened. 2020, it kind of threw a wrench in it. We tried to do virtual, but there's a lot of things going on with the schools, wearing masks and online schooling, and so it kind of stopped everything. But yeah, so it was 12 months. And what we did was we had a curriculum set for every month. There was a topic. So character, communication, service. And so they would have challenges every month that they would have to do in order to achieve these little chips. And as they got these chips, they were able to get put into a selection process to go see the baseball teams in the area, the soccer teams, Chick-fil-A for their whole family. So we had these vendors that could provide experiences or some kind of turnout. So it gave them a reward system to help them kind of keep them encouraged, but also helps give them those wins. And it was things like one of them was you have to help somebody with their homework. Either in your family or in a grade below you. So they got to go out and mentor other students or their sisters. They were doing homework with their sisters. And then, acts of service, they would take the trash can and bring it out for their neighbors and cut the yard. And it was really cool to see, because what it was they would learn how to lead themselves. And then now, towards the end, they were going to lead other people. And so that was kind of the trajectory of it. But it had so many different, we have a whole curriculum that we created that started to compound on the lessons that they learned, and how can we make this an applicable process. So then when you learn about character, now how do you put that into action, right? So it was more stuff like that, and it was really cool to see the progression of these kids and the aha moments and the trajectory of how they showed up.
So was it just you that taught the kids the leadership part and the character part, or did you train other people in the schools or people that were interested to kind of help you out?
Yeah, so that's where we were. We tested it out for a couple of years, and then we started looking at bringing in other speakers, other people that can train. And so the curriculum was created into a binder, like an SOP, so that anybody could train it. And the idea was to box it up and give it to schools that needed it. I think, but what really is important with that, and where we stopped at, was getting the right people to be able to do that. Because it's not, it takes a person that can portray that confidence, but also is willing to be vulnerable and compassionate. It was really unique because we brought a couple of people in, but they just didn't click. It didn't connect with the kids. And I think that the train the trainer is one of the next steps that we would definitely have to do in order to give that to other schools. Yeah.
And, I'm kind of sitting here thinking about some of the things that you did too. And if it's something that, you have it in a binder, like a standard operating procedure, right? SOP, right? That's what it stands for, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like maybe online things or something that's replicable, right? And it is not a nonprofit yet. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. It's in the process of becoming a 501c3.
Okay. So how did you get some of these like rewards for the kids, right? And you're collecting these coins or and they're kind of turning it in, right? The system. How did you get some of your donations, if not yet a nonprofit? And I'm trying to find out, are there things that you would need for listeners that are listening to this and thinking, oh my gosh, like I would love to be a part of it. I can't be a part of it like teaching or leading, but I can be a part of it by donating something. So where did you get funding or any donations?
Yeah.
Or what kinds of things are you looking for?
Well, a lot of it came out of my pocket. And the other of it was just people that heard the mission and they were like, yeah, I'm on board with it. Like, absolutely. And it was really cool because that kind of gave us hope that, that people wanted to make this difference. And again, you're right. There are people that want to be part of it. They couldn't be part of it, physically or in that capacity, but they can give. And it's interesting because I was at a soccer game doing the halftime show for the military, and I was put into a suite next to the House Representative of South Carolina. And we started talking. She goes, I know you from somewhere. She's like, you're the Guys and Ties person, right? I was like, yeah, that's me. And she said, we need that in all of our schools. And she asked me if it was a nonprofit.
Yeah.
She asked me if it was a nonprofit. I told her no. She's like, well, when it becomes that, she's like, Boeing, Mercedes, all these people, she's like, I can get you, in front of those guys to help with the program. And unfortunately, shortly after that, COVID happened and everything kind of went away. But it was really cool because me and her became really good friends. And, it just showed me that there was a possibility there. So, and then I deployed shortly after that.
So it will stay. Oh, so that will stay though in South Carolina, because I know that you're moving as well to San Antonio, right? So will what you started in South Carolina stay, and then you'll start another one up in San Antonio when you get there?
Yeah, I think so. So in 2019, I flew to Austin, Texas, and we tried to launch it in 4 different schools, and that was in the process as well. So we had a lot of great things happening, a lot of irons in the fire, but it didn't follow through. But once I get steady, I'm getting ready to retire from the military. I really hope to put this into my portfolio of things that I'm heading after. I mean, I think that there's a need for it still, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And I want to make sure that I stay on the forefront of that change.
Yeah. And I see so many things too. And I know that your kids are younger than mine. However, so just to kind of plant the seed a little bit too, once it does become a nonprofit, you can now have it associated with Amazon, right? And there's a certain percentage that goes to nonprofit with Amazon Smile, as well as I was thinking what would be cool is you could have a wish list. And so I have known, I don't know if teachers there with your kids yet, but I know that teachers with my kids have made Amazon wish lists, and nonprofits have also made Amazon wish lists. So it sits there as a wish list of things that you would want. And then if people want to give that way, they can go to that wish list and then say, I want to go, to that particular wish list and purchase the things, that it goes directly to you too. So that would be something that you could. And I don't even know, I don't think you have to be a nonprofit for that. So you can start making your wish list, I believe. And as people are even listening to this, hopefully, they're like, wow, that's such a cool program. I wonder what he needs. And, if it's something that you can get onto a wish list and create, then hopefully it will take off some of the burden of you having to fund some of those things and get everybody else who wants to help out with maybe not their time or their talent, but maybe financial that way would help you out. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Very cool. Very cool. I love it. I love it. Okay. So I know that there's kind of a little bit of a lull as you're switching states. So do you know of any upcoming projects or ideas that you might be working on? Do you feel that if listeners want to get involved, that you would be ready to kind of branch out that way? Or what kinds of things do you need to help move the needle forward at this point?
Yeah, I think for me, having a cadre of maybe instructors or people that are passionate about the same topic, that are interested in, the youth empowerment and leadership and development, as far as branching out, I think the big thing is, if there's people in certain areas that aren't, Texas or South Carolina, that would like that, the curriculum, I have it. It's really getting it to where it's a package where I can just hand it off and it's plug and play. And then obviously people put their spin on it, but having a group of like-minded individuals who are going for the same passion, same purpose, to mastermind around, something simple as just you share with the wish list. I didn't know about that, but that's amazing. And it's awesome because I think something as simple as that can make a big difference. These kids, just little things like, school supplies, paper, markers, stuff like that. I mean, it's definitely a necessity. And it's really, once I get to Texas to get settled in, if you work for a school district or you know somebody in the school district and you need a guest speaker, I would love to come out and fly out to speak. It'd be awesome. I mean, a lot of my speaking is executive and corporate level, but the same things that I shared with those kids and guys in ties is the same thing I share with executive leaders in the military. So, it's leadership is leadership, but that's something I love to do. And if there's somebody who has ties to a principal or a school and they need a speaker to come out, I would love to sit there and speak, share a message, and then see how maybe we can work together in the future once it becomes stands up on its own legs.
Yeah, I can see this growing. Is there like do you have a vision in sight where, like, if over the years, what would it look like? Maybe in, let's say, 10 years or 20 years. Do you see it? Do you see kind of something at the end, or what you want it to grow into?
Yeah, I hope to one day see it as maybe a curriculum inside of a school where they take it for extra credit and they get credits towards a leadership or development course when they go off to school. One thing that I really would love to see as well, and I was working with somebody that's in Texas as well, is maybe setting up a scholarship foundation. And so, towards the end, when these kids, they're in young grades, but follow them through high school. And once they make it to a certain level, we give them scholarship money to go to college and go off to get an education. I think that would be huge. And to have a scholarship fund to give to a young man to go off and do something great in the world, I think that'd be amazing to see. To be able to write a check, to write a check and give it to a kid, one of those big, card checks, the ones they give you on the clearinghouse.
Yes. I love that. That's a great idea. Cool. I love it. Do you, I have a couple of more questions too. So just about the curriculum, I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but it's making me think now about a lot of things. Are you planning on, or do you have curriculum in there, just even with the health and physical fitness part of like what you do, right? Does that come into leadership as part of the 12-month program for these kids?
We did have some challenges, push-up challenges, sit-up challenges, and we had them compete against each other in a physical challenge. I think that's very important when it comes to leadership, but also as a young man, pushing your limits and really testing your skill, your mindset, because the physical is directly related to the mental. And so we did have, different things. They got to go, and also going to meet these players like the baseball teams and stuff like that. They speak to them on physical fitness and health. And we have a little bit in there, and we sprinkle it around in the curriculum as well. And so the push-up challenge for the month, running, walking, and then they take their family members with them. So it's like, they get their family involved as well.
Oh, so much fun. I love that. And I think that it just, to me, it stands for, who you are, and just giving back in that way too. I'm hoping that it grows. I can't wait to kind of keep following it. And I get to keep following it too. So it's super
That's
fun. Right. Have you noticed any stories or experiences just in the last, few years that you've been doing this that may have touched your heart and might be the reason why you continue to give back this way? So not even like looking back on the why of why you did this and your upbringing, you didn't have somebody there, and you're now serving as that person and creating other leaders to serve as that person for other kids. But what about in the last 3 years while doing this and creating this? Have you had any stories or experiences that you're like, yep, this is the reason why I'm doing this?
Yeah, one of the things that I will say is that one thing that really, touched my heart was that, knowing that I can't help everybody. There's kids that went through the program and they ended up going into foster care. They ended up getting taken away from their families. And the truth is that I can control how they show up in school, but I can't control how they show up in the house, what goes on in their house. And so one thing that touches my heart is there was a number of boys that when they were going through a bad time at home and they come to school, they want to talk to Lieutenant Waite. They didn't want to see the counselor. They didn't want to see the teacher. They wanted me. And I think that, one story that touches my heart, there was a young man, a little African-American boy. He was really, he's struggling at home. And, he was one of 3 children, and he was a little overweight. And, he when we started this, we asked him, what's your vision? Like, what are your goals? And he wanted to play football, but he never had the confidence that he would ever make it or do good. And, the last year that we were together, he went out and tried out for the team. He made it. He came back to school, and he was so excited. And he said that it was because of the confidence that he acquired throughout the program. And he made such good progress, and he had such good things going on. And then unfortunately, over COVID and everything, he was taken away from his family because something that his mom did. It was an unfortunate event, and due to security reasons, I can't share it. But, his parents did something that didn't allow him, but it forfeited him his opportunity to continue to be with his friends, continue to play football, and he was taken away and given to his grandparents. And when I heard that, it was horrible, because it's like, you feel hopeless. You feel like, wish if only we could have kept going and working together, it could have changed. But those are the things that, I think as leaders, we have to understand, is that we can't help everybody, but we can do the best we can where we are with what we have. And right or wrong, I think that, he'll remember those times that we shared throughout the program. And hopefully, if just one thing, set in his mind, is that he's good enough. That's all. And so I think about that. And, I was selected for a TED Talk, and he was one of the stories of transformation I was going to share. And then I heard that news later on, and it was like, it was just heartbreaking, because, again, it's one of those things where it's not about the money. It's not about the glory. It's about that transformation that you really hope for somebody else, because that's exactly what I needed. I needed that when I was that age. And, I really hope that, things happen for the best for him, but it was one of those stories that it continues to, that I think about every now and then, and just wonder, man, I wonder where he's at today.
Yeah. What's interesting too, though, is that the transformation story that you wanted to share might not have been the one that you thought originally, but it's still a story, because it takes you to the other side too. And it's interesting to hear that even though it wasn't the story that you wanted to share, it's still a shareable story, because you can relate it back to leadership, right? Like you just did, that you can't always help everyone, but you can do the best you can at that moment, right? So that's still a great lesson, which is super interesting. So, as we kind of close, before we get to the last question, I wanted to brag on you for a while, before we leave, because I know we're here and I know we're talking about, guys and ties, and, there's a little bit here and there that's being leaked out about how wonderful you are. I know you're not going to brag on it, but I'm going to ask you anyway, because there might be people like, where is this wonderful person coming from, right? And so, share a little bit more about what else you do besides Guys and Ties. And we know that you're, military officer and a nurse, and now Guys and Ties. But what we didn't even cover is your coaching and your training, your Lead 360, your Whose Or Is This podcast. Let's talk about that real quick before, we're done with this, because I want people to know who you are, in case maybe it's like, well, I'm not really interested in Guys and Ties, but oh my gosh, I think I might want to contact Anthony for this. So let's cover that, because it is amazing. So let's talk a little bit more about you, what's going on in Lead 360, as well as your podcast.
Yeah, so in the military, I had an opportunity to mentor a lot of people that wanted to go enlisted officer, kind of like what I did. I was selected for a program that paid for my college, and very competitive. So, 400 people apply, only 15, 20 get selected a year. And I was fortunate to get selected and get commissioned as a naval officer. And I found out through mentoring thousands of people, right? Some of the best of the best. And these are special operations guys. These are high level people in the military. I found that, they wanted to get to this level, but they were lacking in what the Navy would consider well-rounded, right? And that's where Lead 360 came from. It came from leading from the inside out, not the outside in. And one thing I was able to do was start this leadership and development program. And what it did was it attracted a lot of like-minded individuals. And so what we do is we cover really 3 pillars, and it's personal leadership or development, people skills, and productivity. And what I found is that when you start to focus on those 3 pillars, it allows you to create the capacity to start leading by character and not credentials. A lot of people want to do a lot of things, but the first thing they say is, I don't have enough time, right? How am I going to do this? I'm already up to my neck in trying to just provide and be a good person. But when we sit back and examine our life and look at where we are investing time and where we are spending time, we realize that there's a lot of limiting beliefs that hold us back from pursuing the person that we need to become. And so this Lead 360 group started, and it started creating a lot of people. I think there's about 600 people in there now. And it allowed me a platform to start sharing these leadership nuggets that I've learned along the way, in hopes that it would make the path a little straighter for people that want to follow. And it was really cool because what it did was it allowed me to influence some of my leaders, and some of my leaders are in that group. People that are on the board of directors for, the commands that I were at, and commanding officers of other bases are in there. And they shared with me like, Anthony, thank you for opening up and sharing these because I struggle with this too. And I said, okay, well, this is a group, right? I don't want to be the best kept secret. So then I started the Whose Or Is This podcast. And so I have a business coach and a leadership coach. And he said, one thing I think about with you is that, I think about an oar because you're Navy. And here's the thing, right? And something I ask all my people that come to my show is, what does it mean to take to the oars? And so what it stands for is, if life doesn't give you what you want, and life will never give you what you want, but it'll always give you what you need. But when the wind does not favor, you got to take to the oars. It's a proverb, right? That if you can't, get to where you want to be, the wind's not in your favor, you got to take to the oars. And if you look behind me, that's actually one of the oars that are on my desk right here. And I give that to, when I go speak at events, I give that to the person who's running the event as a gift for me, that it's whose oar is this? And it really stands for when you're in a position in life and you say, why is this happening to me? Or you're like me and everything's happening to you and it's never your fault. And here's the deal, right? It might not be your fault, but it's always your responsibility. And whose oar is saying that I'm taking to the oars, that I'm taking ownership. This is my oar, and that I'm going to get to where I'm going by my own work ethic, my character, my commitment to my life, because nobody's going to help you until you help yourself. And when you think about an oar, right? If I asked you, Dr. Natalie, what does it mean to take to the oars for you? And there's a lot of...
Oh my gosh. I
go
was going to say, are you asking me?
Yeah, what is it? Well, yeah.
Honestly, I feel like I take responsibility. I don't rely on, a lot, because you cannot stop and pause if you want to get to where you need to go. Right. And so I totally agree with that. I didn't actually know what it meant, but now as I'm listening to you, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was getting chills and everything like that. But yeah, no, I totally agree that to me, what it means is you cannot stand still in water, right? Exactly like what you explained. You have to go, you have to paddle somewhere. Yeah. I love it.
And so, it's pretty cool because I ask everybody that comes on there, what is it for you? What does it mean to take to the oars? And it's so interesting, the responses that I get. I've had Navy SEALs on my podcast. I've had a lot of different people, and everybody has a different saying of what take to the oar means. But at the end of the day, it's for me, it's, we don't get a choice if we create. We are always creating a life. Like today, we're creating our life. Every day we create. And we don't have a decision, or we don't have a choice to but create. But we do have a decision that we make every single day, right? The decision on what will we create. And I will have you consider that when you ask yourself, what am I going to create today that serves somebody? That's where the magic happens. And now no longer do we chase success. We pursue significance. And the success that I've had in my life up until now has always been a consequence of the significance that I've created in the lives of other people. And that's one of the philosophies that I'll continue to live by.
Wow, that's amazing. All right. So, with my last question, first of all, thank you so much for being here and for your time. And I get to spend the week with you really on Tuesdays and Thursdays in our clubhouse room in the morning. Guys, if you are interested, we will have information in the show notes to reach out to Anthony, as well as join his free Lead 360 Facebook group, because like he said, he grows content. He has lots of really cool ideas and drops a lot of valuable content. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I need to have more of Anthony Waite, you know where to find him, because we're going to have it all in the show notes. And so there is no excuse to not have Anthony in your life. So with that, I'm going to ask you just one of my last questions that I ask everyone here is, what is one piece of advice that you can share with my listeners just on making the world a better place?
Yeah, when it comes to making the world a better place, what comes to mind is legacy. And one thing we have to understand is that your legacy will begin with you, but it never ends with you. And so my question for your audience is, what do you want to be remembered for? For what you did or for who you were? I think that sometimes we find ourselves feeling like we hit rock bottom. And I remember feeling that way when I was homeless and with nowhere to go. I felt like that a couple of times in my life. But what I found was that rock bottom is a solid foundation to build a legacy. And so my question and what I challenge your listeners is, every day we have a decision. And I want you to consider, don't think about tomorrow or just today. Think about 10, 15, 20 years from now. when you're laying on your deathbed, because we all be there, as a nurse, I've seen a lot of people laying on their deathbed. We'll reflect on our life. And what I don't want for you is to lay in that bed with regrets. I want you to lay in that bed with bumps, bruises, scratches, broken bones, and say, you know what? I gave it all. I did what I came and I was called to do. So wake up every morning with intention, with discipline to carry out your mission and to live life on purpose and create a life by design and not by default.
I love that. Thank you so much, Anthony. And like I said, you guys, you need to get connected to him. And I am so excited that I get to watch this journey about just growing in everything, not just in Guys and Ties, but with Lead 360 and with Whose Or Is This podcast and everything else that you're creating and your family as well. And so I just wanted to thank you so much for your time and for being here on the show and for being on the podcast with me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Natalie. It's an honor to be here, and I just love doing life with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Connecting a Better World, and thank you, NOCO FM, for supporting this show. If you connected to something in this episode, we would love to hear from you. Our contact info will be listed in the show notes, as well as you can reach us on our social media channels. Please feel free to share our podcast with your friends and loved ones. For more shows, please tune in to noco.fm online.
This is Loudspeaker.